The window that shouldn't be there. Carly had always dreamed of owning a little cottage in the countryside, a place far away from the noise of the city. When she stumbled across the ad for an old stone house on the edge of a quiet village, it felt like fate. The price was low, almost suspiciously so, but the pictures showed a charming home with ivy creeping up the walls and a picturesque view of the moors. The day Carly moved in, she noticed it. A window on the second floor visible from the outside, but not from the inside. She walked through every room upstairs, her bedroom, the guest room, the bathroom. But no matter how she measured, there was no space where that window could logically exist. Old houses are strange, she muttered to herself. Probably bricked over. The first night was peaceful. She unpacked boxes, listened to the distant hoots of owls, and settled into her cozy bed. But as she drifted off to sleep, she heard a faint tapping sound, like fingers on glass. She bolted upright, her heart racing. The sound stopped. Carly convinced herself it was just a branch brushing against the house. She would check in the morning. When she stepped outside the next day, she walked around to the side of the house where the mysterious window was located. No branches nearby, nothing that could explain the noise. She squinted up at the window. Was it her imagination? Or was there something, someone, moving inside? She shook her head. You're just spooking yourself. That night, the tapping returned. This time, it was louder, more insistent. Carly tried to ignore it, pulling the covers over her head. But then came a second noise, a faint scratching, like nails dragging across wood. She couldn't sleep. At dawn, she went back outside, staring up at the window. Her stomach churned when she saw it wasn't just a window anymore. A shadowed handprint was smeared on the inside of the glass. Panicking, Carly called a handyman to check for a hidden room or crawl space. He was a burly man named Tom, who reassured her with a hearty laugh. Probably just some old, sealed-off closet, he said. Tom spent hours knocking on walls and measuring spaces. Finally, he found it. A hollow cavity behind the guest room wall. Carly held her breath as he pried the paneling away, revealing a narrow, dark space that reeked of mildew. At the end of the space was the window. The glass was smeared with dirt, and the handprint Carly had seen from outside was indeed there, pressed into the grime. Looks like no one's been in here for years, Tom said, stepping inside to take a closer look. Carly stayed at the doorway, unease prickling her skin. Then Tom froze. There's writing on the glass. What does it say? Carly asked, her voice trembling. He turned to her, his face pale. It says, "Help me." Before Carly could respond, a loud crash echoed through the house. They both spun around, but the hallway was empty. When they turned back to the window, the writing was gone. Tom left soon after, muttering something about bad vibes. Carly tried to convince herself it was just an old prank from long-forgotten owners, but the tapping grew worse that night. It wasn't just on the window anymore. It was on the walls. At 3 a.m., Carly woke to a low, whispering sound. The words were indecipherable, but they came from inside the walls. She grabbed her phone and flashlight, determined to document whatever was happening. As she approached the guest room, the whispering stopped. She hesitated at the door. Her flashlight beam shook as she slowly turned the knob. The room was empty, but the window was no longer sealed in the wall. It was open, a faint breeze stirring the curtains, and on the floor beneath the window was a trail of muddy footprints leading directly toward her. Carly didn't wait to find out what would happen next. She ran out of the house and never returned. A few months later, the cottage was listed again, described as cozy with a unique charm. But the locals knew better. The window that shouldn't be there always found a new owner to haunt. The house that followed Olivia and her family moved often. Her husband's job required frequent relocations, so when they found a quaint colonial house in a sleepy town, Olivia felt hopeful. It was bigger than they needed, with a sprawling backyard and creaky charm that hinted at age. She loved it immediately. "Feels like home, doesn't it?" her husband Sam had said. Their kids, Lily and Ben, ran through the hallways, their laughter echoing in the empty rooms. The first night passed uneventfully, but the second night, Olivia noticed something strange. While lying in bed, she heard footsteps above her. At first, she assumed it was the kids, but when she checked, they were fast asleep. "The house is old," Sam said, "probably just settling." Olivia wasn't convinced. A week later, Lily complained that she couldn't sleep because of the woman in her room. "What woman?" Olivia asked, her stomach twisting. "She stands in the corner," Lily whispered. "She's sad." Olivia forced a smile and told Lily it was just a dream. But that night, while tucking her daughter in, Olivia glanced toward the corner. It was empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy, as if someone were watching. The incidents escalated. Doors opened and closed on their own. Lights flickered without explanation. Ben woke screaming one night, saying something had pulled the covers off his bed. Then there were the mirrors. Olivia first noticed it while brushing her teeth. Her reflection lingered just a second too long after she moved. She laughed nervously, blaming her imagination. But it happened again and again. Sometimes she thought she saw shadows behind her in the glass, though when she turned, the room was empty. One evening, while unpacking a box in the basement, Olivia found a photograph tucked beneath a loose floorboard. It showed a family standing in front of the house, their smiles wide and forced. "They lived here before us," Olivia murmured. She flipped the photo over. On the back, someone had written, "It will never let you go." Her hands shook as she shoved the photo back where she'd found it. She didn't tell Sam. He'd dismiss it, call her paranoid. Instead, she focused on ignoring the unease that seemed to grow with each passing day. But the house wasn't done with her. One night, Olivia woke to the sound of Lily crying. She rushed to her daughter's room, but Lily wasn't in her bed. "Lily!" Olivia called, panic tightening her throat. She found Lily standing in the hallway, staring at the front door. "What are you doing?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "She said we have to go," Lily whispered. "Who said that?" "The lady." Olivia's blood ran cold. She grabbed Lily and marched back to her room, locking the door behind them. But the next morning when she told Sam, he laughed it off. "She's probably just adjusting to the move," he said. 2 months later, Sam's job required them to relocate again. Olivia was relieved. They packed their belongings, leaving the creaks, shadows, and strange whispers behind. Or so she thought. Their new house was modern, bright, and nothing like the colonial home. But the first night, Olivia woke to the sound of footsteps upstairs. Her breath caught. She crept into the hallway and looked up the staircase. There, at the top, was Lily. "She's back," Lily said, her voice hollow. "Who's back?" Olivia asked, though she already knew. "The lady," Lily whispered. And then Olivia heard it. A creak, followed by a soft, distant laugh. The house hadn't stayed behind. It had followed them. The Forgotten Room. When Megan and her husband, Luke, bought the sprawling Victorian mansion at the edge of town, they saw it as a project to restore its former glory. The house was a labyrinth of creaking staircases, arched doorways, and stained glass windows. And while it needed a lot of work, it was rich with character. On their first day of exploring, Megan noticed something odd. The floor plan didn't quite match the interior. She was sure the west wing had an extra space between the master bedroom and the hallway, yet there was no sign of a door. "It's probably just a wall cavity," Luke said when she mentioned it. But Megan couldn't shake the feeling. That evening, she ran her fingers along the faded wallpaper in the hallway, knocking lightly on the wall. Her heart raced when she heard it. An echo. "There's something behind this wall," she whispered. Curiosity got the better of them, and the next day, armed with tools, they carefully stripped back the wallpaper and pried away the wooden paneling. Behind it, they found a door. Its wood was old and warped, the brass knob tarnished with age. "This is weird," Luke muttered. With effort, they forced the door open. The room beyond was small and dusty, filled with old furniture draped in white sheets. A broken chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals coated in grime. The air was heavy, and the faint scent of mildew lingered. On a small table in the center of the room sat a porcelain doll. Its glassy eyes stared ahead, its lips curved into a faint smile. Megan shivered. "Creepy." Luke shrugged, pulling a sheet off an old mirror propped against the wall. The mirror was tarnished, its surface darkened with age, yet when Megan glanced at it, she froze. "Luke," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you see that?" In the reflection, the room looked different, cleaner, brighter, and standing in the corner was a woman in a black dress, her face obscured by a veil. Luke looked at Megan, confused. "See what?" "She's right there." Megan pointed at the mirror, but when Luke turned to look, the corner was empty. "Maybe you're tired," he said nervously, but Megan couldn't shake the image. That night, she dreamt of the veiled woman. In her dream, the woman stood over her bed, holding the porcelain doll. "Leave," the woman whispered, her voice like dry leaves. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. They would wake to find the door to the hidden room open, even though they were sure they had locked it. The doll moved to different parts of the room. Once, Megan found it sitting on their kitchen counter, its unblinking eyes fixed on her. Luke insisted it was just a draft or their imaginations, but Megan was growing terrified. One night, she woke to the sound of faint humming. She followed the sound down the hall, her heart pounding. It was coming from the hidden room. The door was ajar, and the doll was gone. Megan stepped inside, her breath visible in the freezing air. The mirror had changed. The veiled woman stood closer now, her hand pressed against the glass. "Megan." The voice came from behind her. She turned, but the room was empty. When she looked back at the mirror, her own reflection was gone. Instead, the woman stared at her from the other side, her veil lifted to reveal a hollow face. The doll sat on her lap, its mouth twisted into a wide, unnatural grin. Megan screamed, and the door slammed shut behind her. When Luke woke the next morning, Megan was gone. The only trace of her was the mirror, which now hung on their bedroom wall. The woman in the reflection was smiling,